Now universal across NHL, Madden NFL, and FIFA, the new special X Factor abilities shatter the simulation aspects these respective sports brands were previously known for, and thus NHL 22 finds itself conflicted. It recalls the series' growing pains in the early 2000s where the slapstick arcade-style play ruled before giving way to a fealty to the real sport. Given the near total lack of penalty calls except for the most severe infractions, NHL 22 takes steps towards a fantastical style and yet doesn't fully embrace it. It should be noted that this is the first NHL game to run on the Frostbite engine, and that's important to say because you probably wouldn't know otherwise. The change is almost invisible, which is something of a triumph when you consider that Madden NFL still hasn't fully recovered technically after it made the switch 4 years ago. On the other hand, it doesn't look dramatically better than NHL 21, as you'd expect for the first game designed to impress on a new generation of consoles. Instead, the yearly changes are mostly those X factors, which do make rational sense in context. Some star players gain speed boosts, others better shot accuracy after a deke, or shot power while skating. The idea is that these video gamey boosts represent a player's specific skill set. Their impact is kept in check by the fact that each team only has a handful of such stars, so it's not as if every player on the ice has a special ability. X Factors seamlessly blend into the NHL series' modern playstyle and NHL 22's still exquisite right analog stick puck handling control scheme. The precision of that gets better with each annual game. For all the integration, however, the effectiveness of X Factors feels awfully insignificant in execution and in some cases invisible altogether, which makes the exaggerated presentation worse.
Right in front! Scores! What a shot on the one!
The bigger issue with NHL 22 is mostly superficial. Take, for instance, the supposedly rinkside reporter, Carlin Bathe. She's relegated to hyping X Factor abilities as if speaking on a promo reel that runs incessantly at GameStop like this.
Kane's good at stick handling. It's his puck on a string zone ability, and that's how he manufactures offense.
That's jarring next to James Cybulski and Ray Ferraro's commentary since they're calling the game straight, if stiffly.
Under a minute to go in the third. They score!
Compound that with hyperactive screen overlays before face-offs, icon identifiers, and other visual noise. Mercifully, you can customize that to a degree and tone it down, but by default, NHL 22 looks less like a broadcast than it does an arcade game trying to call your attention. EA is selling this as augmented reality, and to be fair, nothing here is completely out of bounds when you consider how networks now use ever-increasing computing power to mark up hockey rinks with lines and graphical stat displays that aren't actually there. In the side activities, this year's updated Be a Pro campaign mode is fine if stunted. Other sports games mimic movies with characters and spoken dialogue, but here, it's all silent other than Cybulski's fictional podcast narrating the events while text boxes determine the created star's personality and team synergy. That certainly feels like a step down in quality compared to what other sports games have done. And yes, progression is designed to push your character toward gaining their defining X factor, although the earned experience points have greater impact. Smartly, franchise mode hides X Factor players in the free agent scouting pool, making the hunt for them secondary to winning the Stanley Cup, so their effect on that mode is minimal. It's worth noting the greater gains in NHL 22 are those from leveling the playing field between pros and newcomers. It may be trending toward arcade spectacle, but NHL 22's sublime puck and skating physics retain true simulation qualities as the puck bounces off boards or trickles into the net unseen. But unlike the growing separation between casual and hardcore players in, say, NBA 2K, there's a reasonable middle ground now in NHL. It's easier to find a realistic playstyle that results in authentic stats and scoring without needing to understand hockey's intricacies or fiddle with difficulty sliders. If anything, that seems more worthy of celebration than skills that are tweaked to suit a handful of players. If there's a fair comparison to EA's recent NHL struggles, it's MLB The Show. Both found a workable, near-flawless formula to replicate their core on-field, on-ice play some 5 or 6 years ago. Now, the challenge comes from finding the new in what was hard to improve upon in the first place. In NHL's case, that's led to the Brash Threes mode, which is filled with fireworks, goofy stadiums, and open 3-on-3 play. There's still the three-way free-for-all mode 1s too, pitting trios of players against each other and a single goalie in a half-ring contest. At this point, it feels like reaching even if those modes offer competitive charm for small online groups. And then there's the real-world money-dominated Hockey Ultimate Team, which offers cards that enhance X factors for your unwrapped players. That's the key change in an otherwise unaltered mode. In execution, this is another method to draw people in to purchase more packs via the slow drip of in-game currency or real-world money, anywhere from $5 to $99. It's still absurd, and just like in Madden NFL and FIFA, it makes the entire game harder to recommend on principle.
This is it, and he scores! Connor McDavid takes the lead.
NHL 22 puts a lot into promoting the arcadey superstar X factors, but they don't have the significant gameplay implications as advertised when you get out on the ice. It's a strong year for out-of-the-box balancing though, and the various arcade modes have their charms. At the same time, it's an uneven visual jump into a new generation, especially in regards to the excessive overlays and lack of major graphical improvements. For more on sports games, check out our reviews of Madden NFL 22, FIFA 22, and NBA 2K22, and for everything else, stick with IGN 22.
What's going through his mind here before he does it for real on the ice?
Well, by the time he gets to the point where he's about ready to step on the ice for the game, he's burned some energy already, James, in warm-up, but he's had time to think. So, he's nervous, he's excited, he's anticipating his big moment, but this is a blur. He's not going to remember any of it.